Welcome to another edition of the Electoral Road Show with me, Chris Steyn, and Analyst Supremo Wayne Sussman. Welcome, Wayne, after another long Wednesday night. How many Wednesday nights have you not sacrificed your sleep?
This wasn't as long as usual. Because there are only 2 by-elections, so I actually got a decent night's sleep last night. But it was 2 very interesting by-elections. The penultimate round of by-elections for 2025, and these were 2 ANC seats which the ANC were defending. We'll start with the one which was supposed to be a very safe contest, and that is Ward 109 in Ekurhuleni, the metropolitan area of Ekurhuleni. And just to remind viewers and listeners that actually the Ekurhuleni Council is bigger than the Tshwane Council. When we think of Gauteng, we often just think Johannesburg and Pretoria, but the East Rand looms large in this province. And this by-election was in the Etwatwa Minnie Mandela area. And the ANC won just under 70% of the vote in 2021. Umkhonto We Sizwe hurt the ANC here in 2024, that they just got over 55%. But still, this is a safe ANC area. And the by-election result last night is very interesting. And before I unpack those numbers, Chris, we've got to remember that 30 minutes drive from this Ward 109 is the Birchwood Hotel, where the ANC's NGC is taking place. It's National General Council, which is a pivotal council for the African National Congress. And the ANC would have hoped that the NGC, being in Ekurhuleni, would have translated into a morale boost for the volunteers, something for the voters to take stock of, and that they would have retained this ward quite easily. The ANC fell from 69% to 37% in this particular by-election. That is a stunning drop, that the ANC are only winning in Etwatwa with less than 40% of the vote. So yes, they retain the seat, and they are happy that they retained that seat, but the ANC's vote share has fallen dramatically since 2021. And Chris, the party which came second is somewhat of a surprise. It's ActionSA. ActionSA getting a quarter of the vote, winning 25% of the vote in this ward, and they finished in second place. And just to speak very quickly about ActionSA, a few months ago, we spoke about ActionSA getting that landmark victory in rural Northwest. In a village near the town of Zeerust. And what we've seen in by-elections, that parts of Gauteng, and we discussed this last week, close to the Northwest, Setswana speaking, ActionSA are doing well in those townships. We know, I just said this in the East Rand, this is another part of Gauteng, and here ActionSA are again doing well in townships. And they have clearly established themselves as a key player in the 2026 local government election with a second place finish. They'll be over the moon with this performance. In third place was the EFF, who got 20% of the vote, slightly up from 2021. And MK party, who came second here on the provincial ballot in 2024, only coming in fourth this time, but only slightly down. So what we're seeing, Chris, and I'm going to keep quiet soon, is that the ANC losing votes to ActionSA, losing a slither of votes to the EFF, and losing votes to Umkhonto We Sizwe. The ANC losing votes in all directions in a key township in the metropolitan area of Ekurhuleni will worry them greatly. The one consolation, as I said, is they retain the seat, but a lot to think about.
Before you go to the other by-election, Wayne, I'm just wondering whether the revelations made at the Madlanga Commission about the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department had an effect on voters.
Yeah, it's hard to say that definitively, but I think that is something which is clearly hurting the ANC. It's not just the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. It looms, the idea of the Tembisa Hospital, of course, looms large in so many people's minds. Tembisa Hospital is, of course, in Ekurhuleni. So I think you have a very good point there, Chris. And the ANC will want to turn around this narrative, and they will not want the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry and any ad hoc committees in Parliament to drag the party down in Ekurhuleni. Just to remind viewers, in 2019, which feels like a lifetime of a generation ago, the ANC won just over 50% of the vote in Gauteng. I think it was 50.15 or 50.35. I can't remember exactly, but less than 51% of the vote. The reason why the ANC won just over 50% of the vote in 2019 was not because of the city of Johannesburg, was not because of Tshwane, but because of Ekurhuleni. The ANC, traditionally amongst these three metropolitan areas, does best in Ekurhuleni. The fact that we are probably less than a year out for the local government election, and the ANC are getting in the high 30s in a traditional stronghold in Ekurhuleni, means that there's a lot to ponder about as we go into Christmas and the festive season here for the ANC in Ekurhuleni.
Well, it couldn't have helped the ANC that Witness D, who gave such damning testimony about EMPD officers, was assassinated practically on the eve of the by-election.
Yeah, it's a terrible story. It's a story which, of course, shook the communities in Brakpan, shook the whole of the East Rand, but indeed the country. And these negative stories dealing with corruption, of course, reflect badly on the Ekurhuleni Police Department, on the Ekurhuleni Metro. And yes, the ANC is not the only party in charge there. They're in government with the EFF and the AIC party, but ultimately they are the biggest party in that coalition. And these negative stories, the assassinations, are reflecting badly. And I think the ANC will hope that come the local government election, they'll been able to improve its share in Ekurhuleni, shown service delivery improvements, internalize the outcomes of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. If it's concluded by then, I don't know if it will be. But yeah, a lot of negative stories for the ANC. And we've got to remember also, this is the home area, the home metropolitan area of Premier Panyaza Lesufi. So this, all these negative stories about Ekurhuleni are going to have now hurt the ANC in Ekurhuleni by-election, and are likely to hurt them more in other Gauteng by-elections.
Robertson, a small town in the middle of nowhere where a wine farmer claims to have sold a Volkswagen up to We Buy Cars.
A farmer.
What car did you really sell them?
A VW.
Right here in Robertson.
Small town, but we know about We Buy Cars.
Yeah, but what's a farmer doing with a VW up?
It was just a runaround.
Cool cover story. And I see you traded it in for this, like a double cab Renault. Were they all out of ranges?
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Okay, Wayne, on to the other by-election last night.
So we go very far from Etwatwa Minnie Mandela all the way to the Western Cape and to the Persimmon capital of South Africa, to the town of South Africa where the great idea of cold storage, which is absolutely critical in our supply chain, comes from Villiersdorp. Now, Villiersdorp is part of the Theewaterskloof municipality, right by the Theewaterskloof Dam, the largest dam in the Western Cape, small, beautiful town in the hill. This is a traditional ANC ward, but quite competitive. And a key factor here, and we discussed this a lot in the last round of by-elections, is that the ward councillor walked over to the Patriotic Alliance, and the Patriotic Alliance fielded this ward councillor in the by-election. The ANC retained the seat. They only won 33% of the vote, down from 49%. 49% is what they got in 2021 and 2024, so a consistent pattern of support. Holding on to the support, the Patriotic Alliance coming second, and this is a continuation of the theme we see week in, week out, of the Patriotic Alliance establishing themselves in different corners of the Western Cape, and of course parts of the Eastern Cape and parts of the Northern Cape. They got 24% of the vote, up from 6%. And the PA's growth was not just at the expense of the ANC, but also at the expense of the DA, which slid from 31% to 20%. And just to show you, this ward only has one voting district. It's quite a diverse ward. The EFF also grew. They almost doubled their support from 5% to 9%. So here are the ANC's vote share, going to the PA, some going to the EFF. So the ANC retains a seat. That's key. And so the PA can easily spin this as a great result, because it is a great result. Their percentage from 2021 has grown by fourfold, by 4 times. The thing is, we've now had 2 by-elections in a row where councillors have defected to the Patriotic Alliance from the ANC and stood in those by-elections and have not retained the seat for their new party, the PA. So I wonder whether we'll see less councillors from the DA and the ANC saying, look, we like the PA, we might cross over to them, but we're not going to cross over to them because we're now seeing a pattern of results of these councillors failing to win their seats back. But a lot again here, Chris, for the ANC to be concerned about. They're sliding from just under 50% of the vote to a third of the vote. And of course, the DA will be concerned here. The PA, the big winners, even though they didn't bag the ward at Villiersdorp.
Wayne, before we do a preview of next week's round of by-elections, the last for the year, let's talk about the challenges of vote buying. There were allegations of vote buying at the recent Johannesburg African National Congress conference and denied by the ANC Women's League. And then there was that proposal from the Veterans League at the ANC NGC of radical ways to curb vote buying. Can it be done?
So this obviously deals with internal party dynamics. We know that people who care deeply about the African National Congress, like the MK Veterans League, are acknowledging that this is a challenge within the ANC, and that if the ANC is truly going to renew itself, it cannot allow vote branches to be bought and voters delegates at conferences to be bought. This idea of brown paper bag politics. This is a stain on the ANC. Of course, the Women's League are correct. There needs to be accurate proof that there was vote buying when Luyisa Masuka was elected as the Johannesburg chair of the ANC when she beat Mayadada Morero for that pivotal role. But this is a big negative because you want people to vote with a clear conscience, to not be bribed, to not be corrupted, because if there is going to be corruption and bribery within your internal party dynamics, what does that mean when you get into government? You want the process to be free and fair, and it's in all parties' interests that vote buying gets stamped out immediately. And let's see whether that MK's motion, that MK's proposal gets any traction at the NGC, because I think the ANC knows that it doesn't help itself if the party becomes internally plagued, that someone's vote can go to whoever the highest bidder is.
Okay, let's look at next week, Wayne.
So it's been a tough 2 weeks, last 2 rounds of by-elections for the ANC. Their one bit of relief is that they are not defending any wards next week. We'll start off in the battleground province of KwaZulu-Natal, in a deeply rural seat in the Umkhonto municipality, which this ward is right underneath the Shushlui Umkhonto or Umkhonto Shushlui park, that beautiful park where one can see so many great rhinos. It's between there and the town of Empangeni, deeply rural seat. It's an IFP seat. In 2021, the ANC ran the IFP close. In 2024, on the provincial ballot, it was the Umkhonto We Sizwe party which ran the IFP close. So what I'm going to be looking out for here is, can the IFP finish the electoral year on a high, boost the party's morale on their way to 2026? Can Umkhonto We Sizwe build on that early success in 2024 and win another ward in KwaZulu-Natal. We know that 2 weeks ago they won a ward in Mandeni by the Tugela River mouth off the ANC, and finish its year on a high. And thirdly, is the ANC, who fell to a distant third place in this ward when we consider the provincial results in 2024, able to gather lost support. They won 40% of the vote here in 2021. It fell to 9% in 2024. So every party has something to play for. Those three parties all have something to aim for in this key last KwaZulu-Natal by-election. And then we go to Mpumalanga. We go to Umkhonto, the town formerly known as Piet Retief, a timber town in South Africa on the Eswatini border. And here, this was an independent seat. But even though it was an independent seat, in 2021, on the proportional ballot, the ANC won over 60% of the vote. So it's a traditionally solid ANC area. But what happened here in 2024? Umkhonto We Sizwe won 60% of the vote. So can Umkhonto We Sizwe, which has had a year of mixed fortunes in by-elections and more bad than good often, can they make history and win their first ever ward in Mpumalanga? This ward in Umkhonto is the perfect ward for Umkhonto We Sizwe to win. We're going to see Umkhonto We Sizwe and the ANC go head-to-head for this independent seat. Again, the ANC is traditionally strong there. We're beaten by a popular local candidate who passed away, versus Umkhonto We Sizwe, which found a lot of favor in this part of Mpumalanga. A reminder to viewers that Umkhonto We Sizwe is actually the official opposition in Mpumalanga. The reason why the ANC did so poorly and Umkhonto We Sizwe did so well in 2024 wasn't just because of KwaZulu-Natal, but also because of a province like Mpumalanga. So two very exciting competitive seats to end our election year next week, Chris.
Meanwhile, next year's local government elections are becoming more of a reality with the handover of the municipal boundaries to the Independent Electoral Commission, Wayne.
That's correct. Now, this is a very opaque process. Even though it might seem that I'm not saying I am, but I might be one of the very few South Africans who pores over voting district data the way I do, there is a community of us. When it comes to analyzing the work of the Municipal Demarcation Board, that community seems much smaller. So one of the things of yesterday's press conference is ward boundary changes. So I'm currently in Ward X. What if my ward changes for population growth, for other reasons? So this is what was handed over to the IEC. So what's happened over last year, November, there was a recommendation of all the MECs over the size of councils across the country. And yesterday was within those councils the way the ward boundaries would change. And this is another step in the road on the road to the local government elections. And what was key in this was presentations by Minister Tembisa, the Minister of Cooperative Governance, and then Simon Mabolo from the IEC. And again, it's too early to tell. We have to wait for the Minister Tlembisa's decision and the President's proclamation. But it still seems like we're going to have the election in November next year. December is certainly out. January is the second option. What was also interesting is the minister saying having elections between November and the end of January are not conducive. And hopefully the next time around, the election will be later on in the year or early on in the year, so it's fairer. Other things to bear in mind are that there are going to probably be 2 registration weekends. So these are all things determined. And again, what's more important, it's another step on the road to the local government election in 2026.
Thank you. That was Wayne Sussman, elections analyst on the Electoral Road Show with me, Chris Steyn. Thank you.